Awesome. I'm just going to start recording now.
What's that?
I just started my audio recording just to have it, just in case.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, and I got to make sure I'm muted here. Okay, I'm muted. Good.
You're not muted. I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. The YouTube video, because I have the chat room open.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
There's a way to pop it out. I can just pop out the chat and then close that window to save some CPU.
That's true.
I'm just going to do that instead. Now that I can see it live, I don't have to see it 30 seconds delayed or 45 seconds delayed.
Right. Although, I mean, honestly, who wants to look at this anyway? My glasses. Where the hell are they? There they are.
Is DK excited for season 9 tomorrow?
He hasn't really been playing Fortnite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's Allie. Allie plays pretty much every single day. She's still completely enamored with it, which is nice. Yeah. So we play a lot of stuff together.
He's been playing a lot of Trove. It's like a Minecraft open world game. It's kind of weird. Hey there, Maxime. 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 I don't know how to say it. Give me a phonetic explanation of your name in chat if you want me to say it correctly. Maxime.
I think it's Maxime.
But then I feel like it should have an N. It's confusing to me because I'm old.
Maxime. There's a restaurant in Winnipeg called Maxime's. So.
Oh, really?
I've seen that name.
Maybe maybe that's where they're from. Are you guys in Winnipeg?
Maybe. That would be fantastic.
So let me go ahead and get your levels. We were so busy doing other stuff that I wasn't paying attention.
Sure.
So, say things.
When you're ready. I was just waiting for you to be ready. I didn't want to waste my saying things, because you know how valuable my words are. I don't want to just dole them out for free and for no reason.
I suppose that's true. Okay, so now I'm going to get mine. And we're peaking it right around the same level, -15, which is good. It's good.
Perfect.
Or, well, probably not peaking at -15, probably -10 or so. But nobody watching cares about that. You know what they care about, though? They care about StadiaCast. And I think we're ready to get started. Are you ready, sir?
I am. I was born ready.
You were born ready? Should we wait the next 3 minutes? Because we said it started at 8, or should we just start now?
We could probably just start now.
Start
People
now?
can catch the 3 minutes. Then we'll get an MP3 download and a stream out of them.
Listen to you with all the ideas. All right, so I'll switch over to this screen, and here comes the music. Get all your coughs out of the way. Uh-oh. My stream's current bit rate is higher than recommended. We recommend that you... Shut up. Don't tell me what to do. I like to have things look pretty. All right, here we go.
Not the boss of me, OBS.
Yeah, well, actually, that was YouTube. I guess they kind of are the boss of me. All right, I'm going to shut up now and play the music. Here we go. I don't hear it. Do you hear it?
No, I do not.
What the hell did I do wrong? What in the hell? Top, bottom left should be playing the intro music. I don't hear it.
The Atari video computer system is 20 cartridges with 1,300 game variations you play on your own TV set.
There it was.
Yeah, well, that's because I played it, like, manually.
Well,
dagnabbit. All right, we'll just go without music, I guess. That's upsetting.
It's all good.
Oh, is it? Is it good? Let's try minimize. Let's try other music real quick. Okay, so the Switchcraft music works. Let's try the Run Jump Stomp music.
Good luck.
That one's working. Why the hell is... Okay, we'll just use different music. No, because I don't know what it's called. And I want to be able to give credit. All right. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to StadiaCast episode 8. Oh my goodness, it's episode 8, and man, oh man, I am joined by my very good friend, Lloyd. He is right here. How's it going, Lloyd?
It's going very well. 8. I can't believe it's been like 2 months of StadiaCast already. This is crazy, man.
It is. It's weird because I'm used to doing 3 episodes a week of a podcast. So hearing 8 is like, well, it's not that big a deal. But holy cow, 2 months of doing this is pretty nuts. Now, Google kind of let us down here, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I was so excited. I had a chunk of my lunch carved out, and I was going to watch this keynote. I missed like the first 20 minutes of the keynote because I was doing some work things, and it's like, oh, I hope they didn't touch the Stadia stuff. And I quickly scanned Twitter, and there was no Stadia stuff, and I'm like, all right, I skipped the boring stuff. I'm going to get the good stuff, and the good stuff didn't come. Bill, it was very disappointing.
I don't know if we are correct to be disappointed because Google I/O is a developers conference. It's basically Google's developer conference. And I mean, we said this before. We said, look, it's possible that we won't hear anything about Stadia. And we did hear a little bit about Stadia, but it was nothing consumer focused. It was very, very focused on trying to point out to developers the strengths and ways that Google has thought about the weaknesses of video game streaming. Did you end up getting to watch the under the hood stuff that they talked about?
Yeah, I did a quick watch, and then I watched it a second time just to see if I missed anything, and it was pretty dry. It was kind of like, this is developing, and this is we have a compile point, and if you use this software, you can just drag this in, and then you can compile to Stadia. And they talked about stadia.dev. So if you're a developer and you want to sign up for the development program, you can go to stadia.dev and sign up for a development account. They talked about kind of the pipeline. They talked about just kind of really high level, like a million foot level, like very high level topics, and which was great. It was great to see. Google I/O, as you said, is the developers conference, but they talked about Android, they talked about hardware devices, and this is like kind of Google's next big thing. I would have thought that they would have totally jumped right on top and said, yeah, we're coming in hard. We're going to be doing stuff at E3. We have this game running on Stadia, and show a little demo. But yeah, it was really nothing. And I know there's a lot of Stadia development I don't know, events and sessions and whatnot going on. So maybe there is still news to come. Google I/O kind of ends off tomorrow, so maybe we'll get news tomorrow, and we'll be like, we picked the wrong day to do the show. But I don't think so. I think they're going to be kind of very much on the down low until E3. But now I'm even kind of wondering if E3 is even going to happen. It really has to, with some comments that they made. But I was disappointed, but not angry. Just like, oh, okay. I was hoping for more, I guess.
I was hoping for more too. And excuse me. Even though Google I/O is a very much developer focused event, the keynote for Google I/O is very consumer focused, because I don't think that the developers really much care about like the Google Home stuff that they were showing off, because that's not anything that developers really get to use. That's really more for, hey, this is the kind of stuff that we can do with our Google Home stuff. This is the kind of stuff that you can do with the Assistant. And being a bunch of Android developers, they probably are people who use those phones and have those devices. It makes a lot of sense for them to talk about the new devices. I was disappointed for another reason. I was hoping to get information on the Pixel 4, because I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do in the future, and they didn't talk about that. But that's not what this show is. The one thing that I got out of watching the Stadia, it was like I think it was an hour long Stadia uh deep dive. Like I think they called it the deep dive on streaming games. The one thing that I got out of that I thought was really good is how they talked about the trade-offs that come with quality versus latency. And it
Mhm.
shows that they are really thinking about this. And they talked about all the different ways that you could try and do it. And it seems like they settled with a custom encoder that is custom built. Custom built for streaming games. And
Mhm.
what I think a lot of people are assuming is that when we use Stadia, they're just going to be using the whatever the YouTube encoder is. But it seems like Google is doing something else instead. And I think
Right.
that that's very, very good. It shows that they're saying, look, these are the weaknesses and this is how we're going to shore them up. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like I've always kind of wondered about Google's YouTube encoder because I'll upload a 4 gig 1 hour video to YouTube, and then it's like, oh, I forgot to transfer it to my laptop. I'll just download it from YouTube, and you can go into your video tools, and I go start a download, and it comes down, and it's like 800 meg. It's like, oh, okay, how did my 4 gig turn into 800 meg? So they do some crazy compression on their end when they get a video from us, and it usually looks good, but a lot of YouTube videos are going to be more stationary. Like it's people having vlogs, stuff in the background. So they're probably using a very like generic encoder, or a general encoder rather, which handles a lot of scenes really well. But games, like most of the stuff on the screen is changing all the time when you're playing video games. So they're going to have to really make sure that they've fine tuned this as much as possible. They want to make it so it's the smallest amount of data coming to the user, because they don't want to have more latency because you're pushing big video files down. But they also want to make it look good. So yeah, there's going to be a nice little dance that they're going to have to be doing between now and when Stadia launches, just to make sure that the games look as good as they possibly can.
Yeah, they were talking about, and I might get the terminology wrong because this stuff is way in over my head. But they were talking about things like P frames and I frames and A frames and B frames. And basically, the idea is one of those frames, and I'm just going to call it the key frame. And that's not the right term, but it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
One of those frames draws everything on the screen. Every single pixel is drawn. And then the next frame that they send only has the things that changed. So,
Yep.
depending on how much stuff changed, that's going to change how often they have to send the key frame. If
Mhm.
everything changed, they have to send another keyframe. And how often they have to do that depends on what kind of game you're playing. So, like, if you're playing a game like, let's say, Hearthstone, those
Yeah.
frames don't change all that much. There's a lot of stuff that stays the same the whole time. If you're watching this video over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/StadiaCast, if you're watching this video over there, you can see the backgrounds behind Lloyd and I. They don't really change. They stay the same the whole time. Our logo that's right below me stays the same the whole time. So those parts of the frames don't change, but everything else, where like when I'm talking, I'm changing a bunch, but Lloyd's just sitting there, not really moving. He's blinking, maybe nodding a little bit, not a lot of motion. They don't have to encode all that stuff in order to send it. And because of that, it requires less data. And what Lloyd is saying, just for those of you that aren't sure, is in a video game, lots and lots of stuff moves all the time. And because of that, they have to send a lot more keyframes. And
Mhm.
that is why it's important that they have this special encoder that is made with games in mind. And I almost wonder if there's like certain UI elements that will always kind of be the same, and the people who make the game can designate this is an area you never have to look at encoder because it's never going to change. Like things like that, things that we haven't thought of because we're so used to thinking of video in traditional format, and having them do it in a completely different way could really change things up, especially if they're thinking about it the way it seems like they are. It seems like they are really looking into doing it in a way that is specific to video games, and I think that's great.
Yeah, there's people that get paid big bucks to basically work at DVD companies and Blu-ray companies to figure out like the best compression that they could possibly do for whatever movie they're working on. So they're going to get some people that are really good at video, and they're going to look at this stuff. H.264 was great. H.265 is better. Video games are really weird because we have stuff that is like 4K and HDR, and the scenes are constantly updating. Like you don't get that really in a Blu-ray for the most part. Like even if you're watching a 4K HDR Blu-ray, there's big chunks of the movie where it's not updating constantly. But if you're playing Fortnite, unless you're camping in a bush somewhere, you're moving and you're spinning around and you're building and you're shooting and all this stuff, and you want to make sure that stuff updates and gets sent to the users as quickly as possible. So I'm glad that they're not just using like just some general encoder, that they're going to fine tune it for gaming. And who knows, maybe they'll have multiple encoders that whatever their brain, the smart Google brain, will figure out. Like if you're playing Hearthstone, it's going to upload, or it's going to update very small parts of the screen, but if you're playing like first person shooter, it's updating a lot more, so maybe it has to use a more aggressive encoder so that it can still send that video to you as quickly as you need it.
I totally agree. I want to talk a little bit about the controller, because some people have gotten their hands on the controller, and oh shoot, I'm talking to you in Discord, so I can't bring it up. Let me bring up this Reddit thread. There are people who are at Google I/O, and while they're there, they were looking at the controller. They actually got their hands on it, and
Right.
there's a couple things that I want to point out. First off, Android Central. I think it's Android Central because I closed the window. Android Central said that they really liked how the controller felt. They said it felt really good. This guy.
Yeah.
Who posted something to the Stadia subreddit. He said he really hated the D-pad. He said the D-pad felt really cheap. So here's what he says. His name is Ramen Blizz. He said, went back to get more feel of the controller. I still stand by my original opinion on the D-pad. It's not great. It's slippery, and it doesn't give much traction. I imagine using it for fighting games, doing Dragon Punch or a Fireball motion, and I think it will be hard to execute those moves. The body has a sandy feeling and slippery as well. That right there, the way that he's phrased that is confusing to me, because I would think if it's sandy that it's grippy. But he says that it feels sandy and slippery, so I'm a little confused by that. He says, I feel I'll need a grip cover to be able to use it comfortably. The face buttons and bumpers are clicky and satisfying, almost feel like clicking on mechanical keyboards. That's really good to hear. I can't confirm the trigger buttons are I cannot confirm if the trigger buttons are linear, since there's no engineers here to help me answer that question, but I'll be surprised if that's not the case. Spent some time using it to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It works pretty well, aside from being slippery. I had to position my hands in a certain way to be able to grip the controller comfortably. Overall, I think it's an okay controller. Definitely not the worst, but far from the best. I think it'll do for a launch product. What do you think, Lloyd?
Interesting. Like I was just picking up my Switch Pro controller, and it's slippery as well. Like all the plastic is very slippery. It's got like kind of textured grips, but they're not sandy. But I find that if a controller's in your hand, like you have it kind of locked in. It's not going to move around too much. So I don't know if I'm really too worried about that. One of the best comments I saw about the controller is that someone called it boring. He said it's boring in the best possible way, and what he means by that is it's not trying to do something new. It's not a Steam controller. It's not like some weird. It's not like that the render that you showed that was like PVC pipe and like and weird other things on top of it. It was yeah, it was just it was different, right? So yeah, I don't know. I like that. I like that description that it's boring in the best possible way because it's not trying to do something new. They said it feels very much like a PlayStation 4 controller from kind of a weight, like the weight of the controller. It's heavy, but not like crazy heavy. So yeah, I don't know. I'm happy. I'd love to hold it myself. The other thing that you have to realize is that when they were on the show floor or on the conference floor, all of the Stadia controllers are tethered because they don't want to use Wi-Fi in that environment. So there's a little bit of weight and attention that's put on the controller because it has a cable, where you won't have that when you're playing at home. Most of the time, you're probably not going to be playing with like a USB-C connection at very often, except maybe if your controller dies and you have to charge it while playing. So yeah, I don't know. Everybody seemed to be very positive or non-negative as it were, which made me pretty happy because a controller like the Ouya was a thing and people hated that controller, and I thought, hey, it looks good, I want to hold it for myself, and yeah, I didn't like that one. And a lot of the other controllers on the market, they're either like very hit or miss. So for most people that I've seen to say that they really liked the Stadia controller or it didn't surprise them, which is a good thing, made me very happy.
You know, you bring up something interesting a moment ago, is that this is not a controller that needs batteries. You plug it in and charge it. And I
Mm-hmm.
am very curious, to the people who listen to our show, how you feel about that. I personally don't like controllers that I have to go find batteries to put in. I like controllers that I can charge, just plug them
Mm-hmm.
in to whatever thing I need to plug them into and leave them there. And as long as it has a good enough battery life, I don't care. You know, honestly, the controller that has the absolute worst battery life of any controller I've ever used has been the PS4 controller. And very seldomly does that become an issue for me, because I pay attention to when it looks like it's getting down to 1 bar, and then I plug it in at night, and then I'm all set again. How do you
Yeah.
feel about that, Lloyd? Are you a battery guy or a plug-in guy?
I thought batteries were great because when the Xbox 360 was a thing, and I had like the little battery door thing, you put your batteries in and slam it in your controller. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm never going to run out of power.
It's like
And
changing a
then like
magazine in a gun.
exactly. And then like 3 boxes of batteries later, I'm like, okay, this controller just cost me $800. Like I don't like this anymore. So yeah, no, I'm a big fan of having rechargeable batteries built into the controller, and not something that you have to remove and charge separately, like some of the Xbox stuff was for a long, long time. So I didn't expect anything different, but it's really good to hear that confirmed as well.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. I'm very happy about it that it's a plug-in thing. Maxime in chat. I can't get over that name. I'm sorry, Max. I'm just gonna say Max if that's okay. Max in chat says there are people who prefer to put batteries in it. Yes, there are, because there are people who play for really, really extended periods of time when they play a game, and
Mhm.
if their controller dies in the middle of their game, they're going to be like, oh man, now what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go outside and see the sun or something. So I
Yeah.
understand that there's people who prefer that. I just personally can't stand having to go search for batteries, because we keep them down in my wife's sewing room. So anytime that I have to, because the Steam controller, one of my favorite controllers, let me just grab it. Right here, one of my favorite controllers of all time. This thing is amazing, but it uses AA batteries. Now, it has a fantastic battery life. This thing lasts forever. But when this dies, I have to set it down. I have to go downstairs. I have to find where my wife has moved them to, because she's constantly rearranging her sewing room. And then once I locate them, then I got to come back up and swap the batteries out and throw the batteries away. And I feel like it's wasteful. I gotta say, I wish that something like this caught on because I love this thing so much. It is so good.
Right.
Pseudo skate in chat says that it sucks. No, it doesn't. You're wrong, but that's okay. You can be wrong if you want to. I love that thing. I think it was great. But the Switch Pro controller is probably my favorite controller of
Yeah, I
all
love it.
time. I would like it a lot more if it had analog triggers. This is the one thing that I feel like it's
Yeah.
missing, and it has a crappy D-pad.
Yeah, the D-pad and the analog controller and the analog triggers would be fantastic. It would make it my favorite controller ever. But yeah, that sadly isn't a thing.
What is your
hopefully
favorite?
I'd have to say probably PlayStation 4. Like battery life aside, it just feels the most comfortable for me. Like I don't mind Xbox controllers. Like they're all pretty good. Like everybody is kind of they've kind of distilled all the crazy designs down into something that works. My previous favorite controller was the Wii U Pro controller because it just felt great to hold in your hand. The 12 times that I played my Wii U, the Switch is very similar to that, so I immediately like the Switch, like right off the bat. But the Wii U Pro controller had a better D-pad, and I believe it had analog triggers. I believe.
It had
So
digital
they kind of
triggers.
toned. Did it have digital? Okay.
Yeah.
So it had a better D-pad, so they toned that down when they went to this controller. So yeah, but for me, I just love the PS4 controller. It just feels good. I just love PlayStation controllers in general. So
Anthony Talca in chat is saying the Nintendo Switch Pro controller has an awesome battery life. It absolutely does. I think I've charged this thing. I got my Switch on launch day, and I think I've charged this thing maybe 4 times. And I play a lot. Although I do play a lot on the Joy-Cons because I like the. People are gonna hate what I'm about to say. I like the D-pad Joy-Cons. Or the Joy-Con D-pad. I think it's fantastic for certain games. Is it good for Street Fighter? No, it's a train wreck for Street Fighter. But I don't really play Street Fighter all that much. So
sure.
I'm still very worried about the D-pad for the Stadia controller. I think that looks real bad. What the guy who had his hand on it said, he said that it felt cheap. And when it was, I think it was Android Central or Android Police had written a thing. They didn't mention the D-pad at all, and I was like, well, they're a phone blog, so of course they're not going to mention the D-pad. I think it's important though, and I want to hear from our audience. What do you guys think about, like, what's your favorite controller? What features do you wish that the Stadia controller had? And looking at that D-pad, do you think that D-pad is going to be serviceable for playing games? Now, if you're like me and the games that you play are side-scrolling platformers, that D-pad's probably fine. Or, other types of games where you just have to hit a button on the D-pad and not really use it for anything other than, selecting a menu, things like that, then that D-pad's probably fine. But if you're somebody who likes fighting games and things like that, I think that D-pad is going to be a disaster. And the good news is you don't have to use the Stadia controller. You can use whatever controller you want. In fact, I think we got a tweet about this. Where was it? Here we go. Julian Sharp tweeted at us. They said, at StadiaCast, hey, Bill and Lloyd, really enjoying the podcast. Question, will I have to buy the Stadia controller to play Stadia? The answer is no. Or, can I use my Switch Pro controller? The answer is yes. And if so, what will be the differences? The Pro controller not having Wi-Fi or a Google button? Thanks, Julian. You want to address that, Lloyd?
Sure. Yeah. Pretty much with Stadia, as long as the web browser that you're running, so the device that you're running Stadia on through the web browser, can see a piece of hardware. So it knows, people have been digging around through the setup. It knows what a Pro controller is. It knows what a Joy-Con is. It knows what a PlayStation PlayStation and an Xbox controller. It knows what all those things are. As long as it can see that, you can use it. Whether every single game is going to support it, that's going to be another issue entirely. But it's very similar to what PC gaming is like now. So most games will support all controllers. You can remap all the controls, and you can do whatever you want. But there are some games that say, nope, you can only use keyboard and mouse. You can't use a controller at all. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what limitations Google puts on their developers when they are using the development kit to make a Stadia game, whether that is even going to be allowed, or whether it's basically every game is going to have to support every single control scheme that you want. So it's going to have remappable controls and all that stuff. But yeah, as long as you're using a modern controller, you'll be able to use it. When you were saying playing Street Fighter with the D-pad, it's not going to be a good experience. Well, that's why you go out to like X Arcade and you buy a USB powered fight stick, and you can do 2-player fight sticks and play your fighting games that way. So there's going to be so many options, and it's different than the Xbox and PlayStation and Switch now, because you can pretty much use any controller you want. Like you're not limited by what the hardware and OS supports, because the hardware and OS supports whatever hardware Windows supports or Chrome supports or whatever. But if you're trying to use your TV, the only thing that you're going to be able to use pretty much is the Stadia controller.
Yeah. An important note with all these different controllers is if you're watching the YouTube video right here, I'm holding up there's some cat hair on it. Holding up my my PlayStation controller. It's got the X's on the bottom. And now I'm going to hold up my Steam controller, and the X is on the side. And then I'm going to hold up my Nintendo Switch controller, and the X is on the top. And if a button or if a game doesn't design itself around knowing which controller you have, and the game tells you to push X, what the hell are you supposed to do? That's a problem.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a huge problem.
It is. So like I was playing Elder Scrolls Online because I love MMOs, right? And I was playing it on my PC, and I decided that I wanted to hook up my PS4 controller because this is my favorite controller for that game. I think it's really, really comfortable. Bringing up, it's just really good. I'm not going to get into why, but I plugged it in, and the game didn't recognize that it was a PS4 controller. Final Fantasy XIV recognizes that it's a PS4 controller, and I'm playing that on PC, and it changes the buttons so it has square, circle, cross, and triangle. But Elder Scrolls Online still had ABXY in the format of an Xbox or a Steam controller with A on the bottom and B to the right. Yeah, that's kind of a problem. Of course, there was a mod. Somebody had made a mod for the game that replaced all of the art from the Xbox controllers with art for the PlayStation controller. So I was able to solve that problem. But for most games, if I want to use this, I have to, and I'm holding up my PlayStation controller again. If I want to use this controller, I have to deal with having the button inputs. I have to translate them in my head before I react. And that is so frustrating. So unless the developers keep in mind that and plan around it, then even if you want to use your Switch Pro controller, I would recommend against it, because ABXY is going to be in the wrong spot. And sure, you can maybe remap it, but most games don't let you do that because that's extra work. And I think that your best bet, if you're not going to get the Stadia controller, is probably to just get an Xbox One controller, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be good. Hopefully, Google's going to do some sort of quality assurance on these types of things, and say, because this is going to be playable on all sorts of different devices, you have to have remappable controls. You have to have the proper labels come up, and maybe they can do some OS level thing, whatever the Stadia OS is going to be running in the background. That's my hope anyway. But until this comes out, who knows? It could be everything, could be nothing. It'll be kind of the Wild West for a little while, I'm sure.
That's right. Let's take a quick break. We'll have an ad, and we'll be right back. Well, that was the wrong button. Now it's not working at all.
These people are upset because even after waiting all night, they were unable to get their kids a new version of a game called Dragon Quest.
All right. So listen, maybe Dragon Quest will come to the Stadia, but we don't know. We've got some feedback.
Maybe.
We got a lot of tweets coming at us. Listen, if you guys want to keep this going, we really like this stuff because it's going to be tough for Lloyd and I to keep carrying this show if Google's not going to tell us anything, for crying out loud. So we got feedback and we really appreciate it. We got a tweet from @SmashBlockGames. They said, after Stadia launches, do you think that we will see Google prevent competitors' ads such as xCloud from appearing on YouTube and other Google services? And if GameStop disappears, oh, this is a second question. We'll come back to the GameStop thing in a second. So xCloud and what was it? Oh yeah, just xCloud competitors advertising on YouTube. SmashBlock, I don't see that happening. I mean, if you think about it now, Apple advertises on YouTube, and they're a direct competitor with Google. I don't think that Google is an ad company. They want the money of the ad. They want the advertisers to be giving them the money. So that's like them turning down money. I don't think that's going to happen. Lloyd?
Yeah, Maxime in the chat room says the exact right comment. Europe would not be happy, and that is exactly right. There, Google's dancing a very fine line between regulation right now. Like if you watch Google I/O, the whole conference is about them saying we love privacy. Privacy is awesome. No,
true.
Google, you don't love privacy. You are anti-privacy forever. But now it's like, okay, we got to do this, or we either do it ourselves, or it's going to be regulated. And it was the same thing with ads. Like they learned a long time ago that if they start filtering ads for competitors, they're going to be seen as monopoly and they're going to get taken down. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be any sort of protection from that. You'll see Nintendo ads, you'll see the next PS5 ads running on Google Stadia games, because Google doesn't care. They make money from ad revenue, and they want as many ads to be run, and they're not going to say no to anybody that wants to advertise, except for the obvious ads that they don't accept.
Right. And Stadia is really Google's, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like Google is doing Stadia because they tried to do what Twitch is doing and they couldn't break in. So they're like, if you can't beat them, join them. Like they're trying to find some end around, like they're calling an audible. They've realized they can't compete with Twitch for live streaming, but if they have a gaming platform that automatically takes care of all of the streaming for you, now people are going to watch that. So
right.
I don't think Google is going to be making buckets of cash from Stadia. Maybe they'll make money. I'm sure that they'll make some money, but their big money is going to come from ads that are on YouTube channels, because that's really like that. The integration that brings those two things together, I think, is incredibly important to their bottom line and their business model. So let's look at the next tweet we got. Anthony Talcott says, I'm sorry. We'll get back to Anthony in a second. Smashblock Games had a second question. They said, and if GameStop disappears, will this put Stadia ahead of Sony in terms of marketing? Where will they show State of Play? They're definitely going to show State of Play on YouTube, but even if they didn't show State of Play on YouTube, they would show it on Twitch. And I don't see that being a problem at all. And by the way, State of Play, they're having a State of Play tomorrow
at 3 Eastern, I think, something like that.
No, it's 3 Pacific. I think it's 6 p.m.
3 Pacific.
Yeah.
Right.
So, this I don't know. I thought the last State of Play was kind of lackluster and boring, but I like that they're doing another one soon. But yeah, Smashblock Games, I think that I don't think that we have to worry about that. Although if GameStop disappears, you're just not going to buy games at GameStop anymore. You're going to go there to buy merch, I think. All right. So we also got a tweet from Anthony Talcott. He said, I'm guessing you guys have owned a few consoles. what have you done? What have consoles done in the past, either UI or community wise, that you do not want to see in Stadia? For me, it's the horrible PS4 community UI on the console. It's horrendous. Lloyd, what do you think, man?
Yeah, for me, it's just slow, convoluted UI, just in general. Like I went back on my PlayStation 3 to download a game for my son a while ago, and it's just like, oh my god, it takes me 20 minutes to find a game on the PlayStation Store. How do they expect people to actually buy stuff? And it's just so slow and terrible. We don't know what the Stadia UI is even going to look like, if there is even going to be a UI. If it's going to be, maybe the games are their own thing and they just have their own in-game menus. We don't even know. But if I had my say, I'd want a nice snappy UI that is the same from game to game to game to do your contacts and chat and all that other stuff. And I hope it's super snappy, not slow, and doesn't make me want to tear out my hair when I play it.
The Switch is like my favorite console. I love that thing. It's awesome. It's great. The UI is fast and snappy, but it has zero community features. Like, there's no way to talk to anybody on that thing. You can't use voice chat. You can't send a message. You can't do anything. It is a disaster as far as online gaming goes. And the thing that you said just a minute ago is very scary to me. The idea that Stadia wouldn't have a interface at all. It would just be, oh, you go and buy the game and then you play the game. Like, YouTube is the interface. And that would be really, really bad, because I want to be able to say, hey, everybody, I'm playing game X, and if you want to join me, then, join me. I don't want it to be like the Switch, where when my friends list is worthless. It is worthless. I have so many friends on the Switch because I do a Switch podcast. I'm sure you have the same issue, Lloyd. Yep. I do a Nintendo podcast. So on my Switch, I have so many friends on there that I can't add anymore. So every time somebody sends me a new request, I got to delete somebody. But it's useless, because I look at my friends list and I'm like, oh, they're playing a game. Well, great. There's no way for me to join that game. There's no way for me to send them a message and say, hey, you want to play together? It's just, hey, look, they're playing a game. Well, thanks for the information, because that's useless. Google Stadia needs to have a community feature where you can have a group, where you can have a chat room, where you can talk to your friends, because as much as people joke that gamers are nerds in their basements alone, gaming is a social experience these days. Oh my god, Google, stop. It's a social experience these days, and you have to be able to communicate, and if you can't, then it's very frustrating.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Let me see. It's a bug hunt man. That's a funny name. They said at StadiaCast, hey, Bill and Lloyd, what are your opinions on how the indie game scene will be handled on Stadia? As a hobby developer, I would love to be able to share my projects online, both in development and after completion. Do you think Stadia will be open as the Play Store, or will it be more restricted and curated like the digital stores for console platforms? Thanks, guys. And he used the hashtag StadiaCast. Thanks for doing that. That makes it easy for us.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. It's a Bug Hunt Man. Thanks for that tweet and the question. Your guess is as good as ours. Right now, you can go to stadia.dev and you can sign up as a Stadia developer. And Google's going through that list right now, and they're cherry picking kind of developers that they want to work with immediately. And they announced that I can't remember the name of the program, but where they're going to be publishing games and giving money to Stadia developers to help with development. They're going to kind of go through that, and then they're going to update the rest of the people that have applied. So we'll probably hear news soon-ish, I would say, as to what that means. My thought is that after Stadia launches, anybody will be able to sign up for a Stadia developers account, and you'll be able to create binaries and upload them to the Stadia cloud and test them. Whether that means that you can release them to everybody, we don't even know. Like one of my big questions right now, or one of the things that I'm thinking about is, are developers going to have to pay Google to run their games in the Google Cloud? Or is this just a free service that Google is providing, saying, make games for us, sell them on our store, we take the cut, we share ad revenue, and we'll run your game? Probably, but maybe not. Maybe it's going to be like other developers, where if you make a really big first-person shooter and you want to have multiplayer servers, you either pay to run your own servers or you pay Microsoft or Sony to run those servers. So there's so much stuff that we don't know yet, and that will come into play when indie developers start wanting to release titles on the Google Stadia.
I will say this, speaking of indie developers, a lot of independent games these days are being made in oh god, what's the two engines that everybody uses? I forgot now.
Unity and Unreal Engine.
Yeah, Unity and Unreal. A lot of the independent games, some of your favorite independent games, are made in Unity and Unreal. They're very, very versatile engines, and both of those engines are ported to Stadia already. So it's
Correct.
going to be basically a drag and drop and then fix a few things to port your game to Stadia, which is fantastic. Right. I think that the easier that they make it to bring games to Stadia, the less reasons a developer will have to say, well, I'm not going to do that now. And what I'm hoping will happen is that the only reason that somebody wouldn't bring a game to Stadia would be because they have a deal with somebody else. Something like Borderlands 3 is exclusive to the Epic Games Store, or something that, the Half-Life 3 will certainly not come to Stadia, when it will be something that would launch on Steam instead. Don't get excited. Correct. We're never going to get Half-Life 3. I've decided to just live with the idea that it's gone forever. Go ahead, Lloyd.
No, I was just commenting. Yeah, the Unreal or Half-Life, it's never going to come, and it makes me really sad.
It does make me sad. So if you want to get a hold of us, it's super easy. At StadiaCast, or you can just use hashtag StadiaCast, because I searched for that when I put the show notes together, and it makes it a lot easier. Now, we have a bunch of people in chat because we're not doing this on a Sunday morning, which is nice. So go into chat real quick. Let's see. Pseudo Skate is saying that the NVIDIA Shield controller is good. Does that controller, have you ever used that, Lloyd?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I was wondering if that controller, like where the X is on there, I wonder if it's over on the right or something, and just to make things even more complicated. Anthony Talcott says Xbox One controller is my favorite due to tiny Trump hands. I hope the Stadia controller isn't too large. Did you have the original Xbox?
I did, yeah. With the big Duke controller.
The Duke controller, what a disaster!
Holding like this. it was like playing games with a pizza box. It was huge.
It was very, very bad. Now, Pseudo Skate is saying he really loves the NVIDIA Shield. He said that the NVIDIA Shield's game stream is 11.76 teraflops. I don't know what that means, man. I'm sorry. I know that that's a big number, and that Stadia has lower teraflops than that, but Stadia, that is just one blade, and what is it? The elastic. What's the thing that they called it? Elastic something.
Yeah, it basically what they can do is they can merge multiple blades together in an instance to share the GPU between multiple GPUs to the binary that is running on one of them. So you can have a game that starts on one blade, and then you want to push out a 4K 60 frame 60 FPS stream. Well, you might need a couple extra blades running when that game is running. So that is all possible with Stadia, theoretically.
And a lot of people keep, we've talked about this before with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Next, or whatever it's going to be called, when those come out, people are saying, well, those are going to be more powerful than Stadia. Okay, but Stadia can upgrade without you having to buy another device. And don't get me wrong.
That's right.
I'm not against the other consoles. I'm probably going to own one or more of the other consoles when they come out. I have a Switch.
Yep.
I have a PS4 Pro. I have a PS4 downstairs. I buy video game stuff. I'm excited for Stadia because it's one less thing that I'm going to have to buy, hopefully, knock on wood. And when those other consoles come out, sure, they're going to be more powerful, but then Stadia can just do their elastic computing. That's what it was called, computing. They can do their elastic computing and just throw more processors at the problem in order to make it go away. So even though when you start talking about the stats and the numbers of computing, it's like you're not quite understanding, and maybe I'm just not understanding what your point is. Not you, Lloyd, chat.
Mhm.
It's like you're not quite understanding the potential that Stadia can bring, at least in my opinion.
Exactly. And the best thing about Stadia is 1 year from now, they see all these new like PS4, Xbox, whatever, get announced. They know kind of what the specs are going to be. Then Google has to then say, okay, well, if we want to compete, if we want to have, you hit one button to port to Xbox and another one to port to PlayStation 5 and another one to port to Stadia, we have to have our hardware a little bit faster. Well, they just have to start replacing these blades, and they don't have to do all of them. They could just replace some of the blades and slowly work that stuff out. And the consumer doesn't have to buy any new hardware. So all that stuff for the next 10 years, Google can keep increasing the power of Stadia, and we don't ever have to see that. That's just going to happen in the background, and their server nerds are going to work on that stuff while we just play the games and have the fun, which is fantastic.
Our discussion that we had about independent games coming to Stadia due to its using those two engines, Maxime in chat is saying, I'm pretty sure that Stadia will not be really open, like it will be more like a console. And to sign up at Stadia Dev, you'll need a company, I think. I don't think that that's true, because I think that would be bad for business for Stadia. It's better to, like, Google is coming into this with nothing. They don't have a back catalog of intellectual property that they can leverage. They need every game that they can get in order to make this proposition palatable to a consumer, so that when a consumer looks and they say, oh, Assassin's Creed, well, oh, okay, you got Doom. All right, well, that's not quite enough. Oh, wait, you've also have 3 billion independent games. Well, now I'm interested. And I almost feel like that's like what happened with the Switch. The Switch started real slow because it had like 3 games at launch, and now, oh my God, there's like 50 games coming out every week. Now, most of them are trash, but there's 50 games coming out every single week. And you look at Steam, the reason people use Steam, there are, you can't even put a number on the number of games that are coming out on Steam every week. It's insanity. So I don't think that that's an issue. Lloyd?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very much similar to being an Android developer, where you could be a company or you could be an individual, but you have to fill out all the tax forms, and you have to make sure that you have a bank account set up, because you're going to have to set up the financial stuff. It'll probably be a very similar process, I would assume. Google's probably going to be a lot more restrictive at the start. They're going to want to have their big channel partners and the big AAA dev studios and some of the really killer indie studios working on stuff and really banging away at Stadia, because the dev kits are being worked on as well, and they're going to be constantly updated as people are banging against them and running into bugs. But once they get all that stuff done, I'm sure that anybody that can make a game to run on an Android phone will be able to make a game that can also run on Google Stadia. Again, the whole how as a developer, does it cost me anything to put my game out there and run in the cloud? All those questions need to be answered at first, but I'm sure that's coming, and I'm sure that's what's being talked about at Google I/O right now. I'm just not down there. I wish I was, but I'm not.
I wish you were there too, Lloyd. We could use a man in the field. Anthony Talcott in chat is saying, so maybe something like Steam Greenlight, where you let the players choose what they want on Stadia. I don't know that I really... I guess that's cool, I guess. I just want, if somebody wants to be able to put a game on Stadia, I want them to be able to. I want that
Yeah.
to be an option. Now, that being said, and this might be a better discussion for next week because we're coming up on the end of the show. So actually, what do you think about this for a topic next week?
Yeah,
Do
we'll
we
put a pin in it
want,
and we'll do that.
yeah, do we want Google to censor Stadia, or do we want it to be a Wild West like they have on Steam? Because there has been definitely some discussion about games that are on Steam that people find offensive and that upset some people, and some people say, well, that's free speech, and we're not going to get into that right now, but what do you think about that for a topic for next week?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's really really good. Maxime in the chat room says, I don't know how companies work in the U.S., but the Stadia registration page makes it seem like you need a company to register. And I'm trying to apply right now, and you could be a private company, public company, partnership, or other. So maybe you don't need to be a company, but yeah, fully registered company name. So yeah, maybe you do need to be a company. But this is just the initial kick at the can. So we'll look into it a little bit more, and that's a great discussion for next week.
Yeah, and as far as being a company or not, like, I don't know that I would
It's
consider myself to be a company. I'm Run Jump Stomp is my company, I guess.
mhm.
It's just me. But
Yeah.
whenever I am asking for, um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Asking for like review copies of a game or something like that, and they say, "What company do you work for?" I say, "Run Jump Stomp." So
Right.
you don't have to like have a building that you go to that has 38 billion people working in it in order to be a company. You can just be a company all by yourself.
Right. And using a service like LegalZoom.com, or there's like a million different online sites if you're in the States or in Canada or whatever country you're in, you can create an LLC in minutes these days. Like it's super easy to set up a company where it used to be a big arduous process. So yeah, maybe that distinction maybe isn't super important, but we'll look into it and we'll discuss it next week for sure.
All right, you ready to button this up?
I am. Yeah,
Buy a
definitely.
ColecoVision and a Coleco game cartridge by November 15th. We'll send you a free Cabbage Patch Kid by Christmas.
Follow the show on Twitter at StadiaCast. You can follow me at Run Jump Stomp. And Lloyd, where is it that people are going to find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Dasme, DASME.
And be sure to use that hashtag StadiaCast so that we can find your tweets, because Lloyd and I both have a bunch of other shows. We'd like to thank the unofficial Discord server of the official Stadia subreddit for letting people know about our show, which you can check out their stuff over at bit.ly/Stadia Discord. The music that you're about to hear, I have no idea what it is because my the button that I usually hit is not working. Actually, I'm going to try it. We're going to try it live here. It should be Subterranean Kamikaze by Zircon. You can check out their stuff at zirconstudios.bandcamp.com, and it worked. I'm out of here. See ya. All right, there we go.
That was a fun one.
It was. And we thought that we wouldn't have anything to talk about with Google letting us down like that.
That's the thing with podcasts. You can always fill an hour if you want. It's pretty easy to fill an hour.
I guess that's true. Dave, how long was it? Yeah, it was. Oh, it's still going. Stop.
It was about 54 minutes or 53 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Save project as save project. Just wait.
By the way, you pronounced my name correctly. So Maxime is Maxime. So there we go. We know for next time.
Maxime. Not saving.
8. All right, doing that export.
Save project as 8. Save. Yes. Okay, there we go. I saved it. You don't even have to export it. We're all set.
Okay, cool.
All right,
better.
guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Let's see. Anything that we missed?
Don't think so.
But we'll Google bring about the year of the Linux desktop. I don't think that's ever
Never.
happening.
No, I mean, people brought that up so many times. And I think with both Mac OS and Windows essentially being free now, those OSs are super cheap. People don't really have a need to do free Linux anymore because you can pretty much get everything else for nothing, which is kind of the barrier to entry for the longest time.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right, cool. Well, that was a lot of fun, Bill.
That was.
And
See you next time.
all right, have a good one. Take it easy. Bye.
Is he gone? Oh, we can talk about him now. There we go. I hung up. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.